Welcome, everyone. I am so delighted to interview my next guest. This is Liz Bloch, and Liz, I can attest to her, her strength as a coach and her results. So she definitely stands out in the business coaching world for her commitment to simplicity in building profitable coaching businesses. What truly sets Liz apart is her authentic concern for her client's journey. Absolutely. That is so true. With over 20 years of corporate experience in profit generation, she knows the recipe for a thriving business. As she puts it, crafting a profitable business boils down to three essential phases. One, cultivating an audience who are willing to pay to have their problem solved. Two, crafting an irresistible offer that solves the problem. And three, delivering expert coaching. When you have a meticulously laid out plan in place, guiding your actions and understanding the why behind them, progress and profits naturally follow. After all, have you ever witnessed a profitable business thrive without a well-structured plan? I have not. This is where Liz excels. She not only creates tailored plans for her clients, but also helps them overcome their lizard brain, love that term, allowing them to have breakthroughs, which see them operate in high performance thought cycles and become profitable coaches. Liz, welcome.
Hey, Kip, so lovely to see you again. You're looking amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited about this interview. And full disclosure, I've known you for a while now, and I've worked with you, and so I have the inside track on how you operate. So I can say with real authority that you are the real deal. And for our viewers today, you don't need to hesitate to connect with Liz because she will help you. No question about that. So before we really dive deep into this, because today I want to talk about the fourth of the four pillars, and that is the right monetization strategy. But I'm really curious to know, because you had a career in the corporate world, and I would say a successful career, and you decided to give that up. So you're giving up the stable paycheck most of the time. Probably you're giving up a certain amount of security and so on, because you wanted to sort of branch off on your own and do this. So can you talk a little bit about what was your super why for doing that, behind that decision?
Yeah. It really boiled down to the fact that, yes, very successful program manager in demand. What's a program manager? It's somebody who manages project managers under a big umbrella. So we're all working towards a common outcome, but there's multiple projects. So quite complex. Usually I got the worst projects in the building because they're the ones that I could do better than everybody else because my brain enabled that. So I was very lucky that I fell into that career and it was easy for me. So I would watch a lot of people struggle with it and I'm like, well, why is this so hard for you? I could never understand it. I'm telling you this for a reason, the easy thing. So yeah, $500,000 a year, if you call that a stable paycheck, that's what I was typically earning. I was not a permanent employee always. I was typically a freelancer. So I loved change. I loved to be able to pick up sticks and go, and that's how I traveled the world, probably 3 or 4 times over. However, there is a common thing in my life. It's one of those things on my wall. It's called horses. And it had gotten to the point where I was constantly having to make decisions about, will I ride the horses or will I work? Because I managed international teams. So even here in New Zealand, my teams were based all over the world. And what it came down to is that I was never off. So because of the mobile phones, and I used to work in telcos for a very long time. So in some ways, I just look at myself and go, your fault. Wasn't my fault, obviously. I was never able to stay away from my work because I loved my work. I loved my job. I typically really loved the projects I was delivering on. And yes, all of them were profit orientated. If you're running a corporate business, small, medium, large, doesn't matter. I've worked in them all. Then the goal is to make money. Even not-for-profits have to make money. So that's why I say I'm a profitization expert, because literally I was brought in to either turn a bad situation around to get it profitable or create a new arm of business to create profits for that business. So every project I did, I usually loved. And I'm the person that they would say, hey, we want to do this. Can you make it happen? So I'd then go and build the plan out, hire the team to execute the plan, execute it, hand it over, and then go to my next project. So I was not somebody who liked status quo day by day, saying things, pump the Clarke. So going back to my why, it was simply because I was tired. And it was simply because I couldn't imagine carrying on at that pace for more years. Not because I didn't love my job. That's another key thing. And so what I did is at the end of a contract, they'd made me an offer which they believed was irresistible. I did not concur. I said no, because it was against my morals and ethics. Another key point to be aware of, your values matter. And so whilst I was quite happy delivering technically for them, and I loved the project, I didn't like what the company stood for. Essentially, they were a loan shark. They lent to the poor and charged them for it and made all sorts of wonderful moralistic reasons that was a good thing to do because, some default. So at least they came somewhere for money. And if they got overcharged, then hey ho, it all worked out in the wash. And like, no, a kid raised in poverty. No, that wasn't my ethics. So I left there. And that was when I had the decision point. Do I go back to corporate or do I start my own coaching business? And because I've been a coach certified since 2002. So it's a big part of my job was to understand people, understand what they valued to get them to deliver. Well, 4.5 years later, here we are. And I've only been profitable for a fraction of that time. Because what I did not understand about building a coaching practice was I was building a business and I was signing up to be an entrepreneur / business owner. Now, I know lots of people out there, because I support a lot of them, who had this dream to be an entrepreneur. That was not my dream ever. My dream was to run teams. So that's where I got my why from, was simply I wanted to have more time to ride my horses because I wanted to compete at a higher level. Simple.
Yeah. I mean, you're speaking about values, and that is so critically important. I think a lot of people aren't really clear on their values, and certainly there are processes that we can take them through that help them to uncover that, because they're inside. They've just maybe forgotten them or have never really paid much attention. You mentioned horses as well, and I think you're dressage as well, aren't you? Dressage, which is I'm not a horse person, but I think it's one of the most disciplined sporting events that one can be involved in. It's all about structure and discipline. And so, this I think is where you're brilliant in business too, is that you bring structure, you bring discipline, you bring process to the whole kind of business creation. And that's how you help your clients, because a lot of them struggle and they don't know what to do next. And you just make that so simple for them. So, I'd love to know, we're talking again about the monetization pillar. What, in your opinion, what are the reasons that so many coaches aren't able to see their dream through of being successful and profitable? What's going on there, and how do you help them?
Okay, so we just need to look at statistics. So you'll hear me often say, let's just look at the numbers, because numbers are unemotional. And one of the biggest problems with coaches is you usually have the two schools of coaches, is what I've found. You've got the sales and marketing coaches who are super good at selling, not so hot at delivery. And then you've got the really excellent coaches, of which I support, who are all causal based. They can see what's really happening. They know what the underlying problems are. But that also means they're self-critical, they're self-judgmental, and they lack the confidence. And they also can't sell and market their goods and services because they are talking about the cause and not the symptom. People want to pay for a symptom to be solved. So that's one of the biggest issues. The other issue that I find is that people get too up in their heads about what is it that I do and who is it that I help, and only are prepared to give it 1 or 2 shots before they're like, can't be bothered, I'm not going to do this, it doesn't work for me. And that's where we have to understand that repetition is where mastery comes from. And that's why I break it down into such simple steps, right? You've got to audience build, you've got to sell to them, and then you've got to help them. And the reality is if you have no audience, you cannot sell to them. And so many programs will teach you to go into a sales cycle before you even have a room full of people to make an offer to. And that again is why a lot of coaches quit, because they're like, well, nobody turned up, or only 3 people turned up. And I'm like, well, what did you expect? You have no room. And that's just sort of, you've just got to keep breaking it down. And like I mentioned to you earlier, when I decided I would be a coach, I didn't understand I was building a business. And that's part of being profitable, is understanding you're not just coaching. Coaching's at the bottom of the hill, I now like to say, because at the top of the hill is selling. And so if you don't know what your offers are, and if you don't know who you help specifically, and if you don't know that they're willing to pay for that, and a lot of coaches will call that your niche. I don't refer to it like that, but that's what most of us will know it as. Then we can circle the niche drain for years as well, not making progress, not understanding why it's going wrong, because nobody's guiding you or telling you or helping you break it down in your brain as to what it is you're really trying to achieve. So that's, did I answer the question?
Yeah, you have, and I just wanted to touch on something that you mentioned, and that is that I know that your principle is that I've heard you say this many times, your offer is your niche. Your niche is your offer. These are, in the way that you coach and work, those things are interchangeable. Can you just explain that a little bit?
Yes. So what I usually use is fruit salad, because people understand, this is the advantage of using metaphor and examples, right? Because our brains can understand it in a different way. And I was very guilty of trying to explain everything in a corporate sense, but it didn't work for my brain either. And yet here I am, corporate whiz kid. What do I mean? It's very simple. If you're going to be getting a pool of people in your room, let's call it fruit salad, because you're not clear on your niche. For example, could be you're a fitness coach, and that you think is, oh, that's a niche. That's one of the top 6 niches I'm covered. It's in the health and fitness industry. I'm all good. I'll bring in fruit salad, i.e., I'll talk to anybody about anything about fitness. And then you're thinking to yourself that really my key thing is a banana. And more importantly, it's a banana split. So you go out there and you bring your audience in, and it's a bowl of fruit salad. Then you try to make your offer, because your offer really is the problem you solve. So that by default is your niche. If you stop and think about it. And you're trying to offer fruit salad. You're trying to offer a banana split to people who love fruit salad. And guess what? You forgot to tell them about the banana split, and there's no banana lovers in your room. And that to me is the biggest problem that I see when coaches start out. And that's how I describe the difference between a niche and a niche offer. So what is it that you're going to sell to them specifically? And the reason I want you to be specific is it helps in your marketing. So again, you can imagine that if you're trying to write copy, go online and social media, write a blog, be on YouTube, have podcasts, whatever it is that you have, and you're trying to build your expertise and your experience, and you keep talking about a bowl of fruit salad, which is very vague and generic because you're going to cover 17 different fruits potentially. How much different is it for you to just show up and talk about banana splits always? Now, that doesn't mean that's all you sell, but initially that's all you sell, because you have to learn the art of selling. And most of us, like I said, most of us who are the ones that struggle are not the natural born salespeople, and they are natural born. I'm sorry, they are. There are some people who are just extremely good at it and don't have to work at it. Like I'm extremely good at creating project plans. I don't work at that, but some people can't even begin to understand how to do that, right? So I'm the same with the salespeople. So I now know that's a skill I needed to learn. Here's the great news. Everybody can learn the skill. It's not hard. You just got to apply yourself, right? Comes back to discipline. And then you get to work explaining that banana split in a way that is compelling, that have people sitting up and looking at you, and then it's a no-brainer offer. Or what I've heard recently is it's described, and it will resonate with you, as a Grand Slam offer. So not many people win a Grand Slam, but if your offer is a Grand Slam offer, people are lining up to take it. Yeah. And when we're starting out, and literally it's more about when you're starting out, because that's where we want to get momentum and growth from, then the more narrowed down you get, the easier you make your life. And don't we all want it to be easier?
Yes, we do. Yeah, and that's such a good point that so narrowing the niche / offer is so critically important initially, but not thinking of this is the thing that I'm going to be doing for all time. We all, I think, in this industry have grown and evolved and changed. So if the banana split stops really lighting us up as the kind of thing we want to create, then we can turn and maybe start serving some cantaloupes for a while or something, just to extend the metaphor. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what you're saying is get really good with the banana splits first, learn those skills that are so foundational. And usually what happens, I think, is that out of the work that we do will arise the next thing. instead of
Yes.
trying to search around to figure out what that is, just zero in on the one, get good at that.
And if I can just really reinforce, because I need to, that doesn't mean you try the banana split, sell it 3 times and go, yeah, I'm done with that, I'm going to the cantaloupes. Because what then happens is you actually haven't learned. You've avoided something that's been triggered in your brain, right? And unfortunately, that's the lizard brain. And it won't necessarily be because you don't like banana splits. It'll possibly be because you've hit a resistance point. So you think switching to cantaloupes will be easier. And so I often say, build that for at least 100K, learn to sell it to at least 100K. Because remember, if you're doing this in a systemized way, and I know systems are boring and nobody wants them, but I want to keep reminding everybody, go look at what profitable businesses have, because you're running a business. They all have systems, processes, and plans. So therefore, what do I mean by picking banana split? You've already understood your values. You already understand your ethics. You already understand what you are naturally good at. Because if it's something you're not naturally good at, and people, all of you doubting Thomases out there, you're all good at something naturally. Every single one of you has a zone of genius. Go and ask people what you're good at. They will tell you. Why do I suggest you start with that, even if your brain is resisting it? Because I am a naturally good planner. Didn't want to sell planning. Didn't want a bar of it when I started my coaching business because I was sick of it. That's not good enough reason not to use what my zone of genius is, because I know it so well, it's easy for me. And when it's easy, I can sell it and talk about it in an easier way. And so that's what I mean is you're already very clear you're good at it. You actually do like it, because otherwise you wouldn't be good at it, because being good at something means you practiced it. And it makes sense because people will pay you for it. Getting your business from the first 0 to the first 10K is probably the hardest thing you're ever going to do. Getting it to 100K will be the second hardest. Getting it to $1 million is actually very easy when you're in multiple sixes. It's actually way easier than getting to your first 6 figures. And so I just wanted to stress that. Get good at something before you swap out.
Yeah, that's such good
And
advice.
ideally, yeah, it's not a banana, it's not a cantaloupe, it's a banana sundae, or it's a banana muffin. You're still in the zone. Yeah.
I want to come back to the lizard brain in a moment, but just before we do, what would you say? So if someone has not yet made money in his or her business, what would be the first step for them?
The first step for anybody who is yet to make money is to ask yourself the following 3 questions. Do I have an email list? Now, why do I specifically say an email list and not a social media following? Simply because if you're trying to run a business, you need something you own. You need an asset. An email list is your asset. However, I am aware that if you're in a passion niche, what's a passion niche? Horses, dogs, something people get very emotional about, and the emotion overrule the logic to buy, quite frankly, then you can get away with a social media following because people will buy from you on that. But for most of us, you're going to have an email list. So that's my first question. If you're not making money, do you have an email list? If you don't, you are in the audience build phase. Go and find an audience build strategy. Fortunately, there are 3. Go pick one that resonates with you but stretches you a little bit. Now, if you've got deep pockets and a very good understanding of what it is you're going to help people with, go paid. Paid every single day of the week. If you don't have deep pockets or you're still trying to figure out how to sell your stuff, go collaborative. If you don't care about how long it takes for you to build your email list, go organic. Very simple decision points, right? So if you're not making money and you do not have an audience, that's your starting points. If you've made some money, and I know that you said they haven't made money, so therefore audience build, but if you have and you're not getting enough clients, it's just a conversion problem. So what do we do then? We look at our sales system and we look at how we're actually presenting through our material, and we're looking at our language, and we're looking at how we position our offer, because sometimes we get caught up in our process, i.e. it's a 6-month thing and you're going to have this many calls and you're going to have access to that. Nobody wants that. They want the result. So therefore that could be your work. And then of course, when you've got a lot of money but you're drowning, you've got to look at your delivery arm, but that doesn't apply in that scenario. Yeah.
That was a great answer. So I do want to come back to the lizard brain, because this is
Yes,
something I think that a lot of coaches deal with, or monkey mind. I
yes,
mean, there are different
yes,
terms that have been used for it. The ego is
yes,
another one.
yes.
Now you have a specific framework that you use,
Mhm.
the think framework. And I know that the inspiration for that came when you were riding your horse one day. So talk about organic. Could you talk a little
Well,
bit about the framework? What's the power in it? What does it do, to help
oh,
people get past that lizard brain?
okay, so first of all, the lizard brain to me, whenever I talk about it, I put him on my rock and I put him here. Why? What I think is really encouraging and helpful for us to all know is that your lizard brain, your unconscious mind, your past habits, routines aren't you. So put them outside of you. So that's why I always have this on my desk and he's outside of me, because oh Lordy Lord, can he come up with some amazing things? And notice I say he. Don't ask me why my lizard brain is a he, just is. Now, the horse that I dreamed this up on is also a he. His name is Vinny. Why did I come up with this? It's very simple. We as coaches are exposed to a lot of content all of the time. We are probably always learning in some format. And for a lot of us, our lizard brain will have us avoid our work in so far as it'll tell us to go and learn something first rather than do something. So that's called avoidance, and that's not going to build your business, FYI. And so what I always want you to think about is, if I want new results, most coaches do, they want clients, they want income, then I have to be prepared to do something different. Because if I keep doing the same thing, Einstein tells us we're doing the same thing over and over, going to get the same result. So what I came up with is on Vinny, whom I had wanted to compete at the highest level and was not making progress and could not understand it, was one day I'm sitting there and a common thought I would have was, why can't you think? And what I then was able to do is take that and break down each letter. So the T stands for thoughts. What I think is how I feel is how I act, and how I act is the results I get. So every time I feel frustrated, it's because I'm thinking something that's frustrating me. So typically for me on the back of Vinny, it was, why isn't this working? Or why isn't he doing? It was always negative, which led to the frustration, which is just a dash off anger. Being frustrated and angry on a horse, not a good recipe. Because what does that mean your actions are? We won't go there, but they weren't good. What did that therefore mean my results were? Well, I wasn't making progress, was I? So when I apply that to my business, it's the same logic. For example, a lot of newbie coaches or coaches yet to make a high profit in their business will often think, I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. That person over there is way better than me. Why am I even bothering? Now, that could be a fleeting thought, but that's enough to trigger him. And what then happens is you're usually compounding it with what I call your spiral of thinking, because one thought leads to another. And if you are quick-brained, some people can think 60 to 90,000 thoughts a day. I unfortunately are at the 90,000. So my brain can take one single thought and create 1,000 more next to it. And that takes me out of the game because I end up feeling like a pile of rubbish, right? Shitty, defeated, hopeless, depressed. What am I going to do in my business feeling like that? Not a whole lot of goodness. That's my lizard brain. So then I go, well, how do I overcome my thoughts? Because yes, I get it. I have to create a new version of me because I have to create new thoughts. So then I came up with the H. The H is the how. Now, it's not how do I do something. It's who do I need to be in order to do something. Because if I can't be who I am right now because she hasn't got the results I want, how do I get them? Well, I have to be the person that has those results. So what do they do every day? So that's future proofing, right? And we're all taught this because all my think model is everything I've ever been taught thrown into one word. So it triggers me to be better. The I is for inspiration. Why inspiration? Because I know when I'm inspired, anything is possible. So if I watch somebody climb Mount Everest, I'm inspired by that. And I'm like, let me go climb a rock. If I watch somebody do a webinar to 1,000 people, that inspires me because it's possible for me. The other thing that I know to be true is we only think things that are possible for us. I have no inclination to be a world-class gymnast, and it's not possible for me to be one either. So I don't even think it. But if I think I can be a world-class coach, guess what? It's possible. I just have to get out of my own way and become it by the H and the T. That brings me to the N. Now, the N is where a lot of us find ourselves dwelling. This is for no negotiation and no story, because he will give you all of the reasons why not every single day of the week, because his job is to keep you safe. His job is to say, come back to this cave and do not change. Because change is predictable and we love predictability. Well, entrepreneurs don't operate like that, and business coaches can't operate like that, and any coach cannot operate like that. You've got to push yourself out, or you're going to stay where you are. And then the last one is my favorite one, because again, going back to Vinny, what I would do is I would go and seek knowledge. And I have got every book ever written on the subject of dressage. I'm pretty sure of it. And my partner likes to go, look at all these books. How do you not know what you should be doing? I do not understand that. So not only do I have every single book written on it, I'm probably in about 6 different training online programs. And I used to have about 3 different coaches coaching me in my arena. I was confused, and my brain loved to go, but they said to do it that way, and they said to do it that way. So I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. So confusion. So what do I use the knowledge for? Knowledge is power when you use it. So one mentor at a time, one system at a time, one process at a time for my brain is how I get there. And that is my think framework in a nutshell.
Yeah. It's so powerful. I've seen it in action. And I think that's such good advice that you just commented on near the end of that, which is to, horses they get blinkers on them, don't they, when they're in a race, because they're not, yes. If they see what's going on beside them, they'll adjust based on that. And so we really kind of need that. So for coaches or people that are struggling a little bit, it may be this shiny object syndrome where you're just looking for the next sort of shiny thing. And it's a kind of form of procrastination, as long as I'm, still learning, then I'm not actually doing. I just need to learn the one more thing. So just focusing.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that's where we all get, particularly when we start out, because we're taking all the freebies. Sorry, I know we give freebies here. Sorry, but it's true. But what are look, let's take a step back. What are freebies designed to do? They're designed to point out a problem. So when you're freebie seeking, you're just being told 52 different ways what your problem is. And guess what? He loves that, because he can just go, oh, there's no way I can even do this. Let me just do nothing. It's so much more comfortable. What's on YouTube today?
Yeah.
That's what happens. So that's why I'm always like, yes, I go and I do take people's free stuff. But why do I take people's free stuff? Because maybe it's a gap, or maybe I'm learning. So in the business skill I'm really focused on is selling and marketing right now. So therefore I will go and look at a really expert sales and marketing coach just to see how they frame it up. What are they saying? I have no intentions of going down their rabbit hole, and I have no intentions of believing challenges are dead, podcasts are dead, because everything's dead. Remember, if they're selling something, they're telling you something else is broken and not working. And the reality is there's only 11 sales strategies out there. They all still work if you do the work. So I don't buy into any of that, but trust me, like I mentioned, it took me 3.5 years to figure this shit out. It's only the last year that I've become very profitable.
Well, and that's what a lot of coaches, that's the reason that they're coaching, is that we've had a problem, we've solved it ourselves, and now we want to share what we're doing to make it a little easier for the next folks that are coming along. Yes. So, and so this beautiful segue into my last question I want to ask you, and that's about momentum, because it really is about sort of gaining traction, getting momentum, that forward movement. So just focusing on one thing at a time and doing it really well, but keeping that sort of steady progress. And you actually have a program called Momentum. So I just wonder if you could talk very quickly about having the next thing for clients. So you've got an ascension model. Some people call it a staircase package. It's just having, when you've taken a client through a program, then what's next for the client? So can you talk a little bit about momentum and keeping that momentum going with clients?
Look, so it's really simple. When you have delivered something to somebody, they always want to know what's next. So your job is to figure that out ahead of time. Now, it could be, if you've decided that you're going to go into coaching, the quickest, fastest way to get profitable is through one-to-ones, because it's a higher ticket. And so therefore, what would be your next step? If you've got a one-to-one who's completed the result, but you know there is a next step, well, you design that ahead of time. Now, if you are somebody who doesn't think that that is part of what they're doing today, then don't worry about it. If somebody asks you what's next, you just say to them, at the moment, I don't have anything next, but stay on my list, because when I do, I'll let you know. You never stress yourself out about things that you don't understand at this point in time, because your goal is every 6 months to look back and go, look how far I've come. And that is another part of momentum, right? Is that if you can't look back at yourself 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, and see change, boom, problem. And so you grow into your ascension model or your staircase offer. And what that really is how will the client come through my processes and my business with me? Now, in my world, for example, I start with something called business fundamentals, because I don't want you to start doing anything in your business until you're clear on your values, your ethics, your morals, your offer, your strategy that you're going to use, because all strategies work, every single one. Just pick one that you like, that works for you, and then knowing the numbers. Because I think when you understand average industry metrics, it's easier to gauge yourself by them. You don't beat yourself up as much, because then it just becomes an intention. I need to get 100 people to sell 1 to 2 people. And your goal is therefore, how do I get 100 people? And that changes the chemistry in your brain. I also want you to step by step it, because you shouldn't be waking up going, what the hell should I work on today? You also want to lead them all to somewhere in your model. So for me, I start with business fundamentals. You then come into momentum. If you want, you can stay in momentum for multiple rounds. It doesn't really matter. And then eventually there's a mastermind for those who are already over 6 figures, because the focus of a business changes. It changes from how do we get profitable, which is your first step, to now how do we keep building and growing and scaling, which means we need to systemize, we need to automate, we need to go inside, and we need to make sure we're delivering world-class processes, systems, and of course services. And that's all part of a staircase model. So it's about your banana. How does your banana evolve? That's all it is. And you don't have to have the answers today.
No, and I think it's worth saying, again, because we're focusing on the monetization with that ascension model. It's a pyramid shape. So the lowest sort of level is the one that perhaps reaches the most people and is the least expensive. It's kind of the no-brainer. And then with each subsequent level, you're narrowing the people that you're working with, and it becomes a more exclusive and kind of VIP experience. And so it's a higher ticket for each one of those. And so it's a kind of a reverse relationship. The higher the price, the fewer clients you work with, but you also want to give as much sort of bespoke coaching as you can.
It's accessibility. They're paying for accessibility, right? Normally, as you go up, you give them more and more of your time, because they're paying. The investment they make is more and more and more. And that's something that I always want everybody to understand. There are lots of programs out there for us to choose from, lots of them. Some are, and they all work. Every single program works. They wouldn't be there if they didn't work. But here's the thing. You could be in the right program at the wrong time. And that colors everything. So you've got to be very mindful about where you're at, and are they servicing you specifically? Because if you throw yourself into a program that's designed to take anybody from nothing to $1 million, you're screwed. If you're somebody who's got a lizard brain that isn't going to function on its own, because oftentimes those programs are, here it all is, chucked at you, make it up, figure it out. And that's not necessarily what a lot of us did. I didn't need that. That's why I basically give you step by step programs and plans that work, because I want you out of that mind drama. I just want you in action, and I'm in the business of helping you build a business. I'm not in the business of helping you create profits quickly. There's a big difference.
Yeah. Well said.
So perfect. Judge where you're at.
Yeah. Well, this has been absolutely amazing, Liz. I knew it would be. There's so much value in this conversation we've had. Just before I wrap everything up, could you share with everyone your lovely freebie?
Okay, so what I've given you all is probably the last thing you want, because honestly, most people don't want it, but it's the best thing you need. And it's a checklist and a launch plan. And what it gives you is a really good breakdown of what the pre-sales activity is, promo, how you do that, what steps go into it. Now, obviously, it's my freebie, so it doesn't go into every single detail in a lot of information, but there is enough there that you get to understand the power of a plan. I talk about the different strategies you can adopt at the different time frames, and it gives you an idea of how your brain could get out of overwhelm if you would just get yourself a little more structured. So that's what you can grab, and I hope you all find it useful.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. And thank you so much, Liz, for your generosity and time and sharing your wisdom. And with the freebie, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for this. I really enjoyed it. I know it's been a lot of value for our viewers, and I really appreciate the time you've taken here today.
Thank you, Kip. It was lovely to talk to you. Thanks, everybody.